Galactic Council High Command, the core of the Grand Spire, planet Zalvek. Prime Commander Vex Ora Tull stood at rigid attention, her 4 eyes flicking between the floating holographic display and the ancient figure seated before her. Across from her, High Counselor Zixlor rested his long, withered form upon the undulating strands of his biothrone, his wrinkled tendrils flexing rhythmically. Despite his frail appearance, Zixlor was one of the most feared beings in the galaxy. For nearly 3 centuries, his voice had shaped the future of the Galactic Council. 16,000 species, spanning hundreds of thousands of star systems, all bowing to his wisdom. And now, that same voice was issuing an unprecedented order. "You can't be serious," Vex Ora said, her secondary eyelids fluttering in disbelief. Zixlor's tentacles coiled slightly. The closest his species came to an expression of irritation. "Do I appear to be making a joke, Commander?" he rasped. His voice, though ancient, carried the weight of absolute authority. Vex Ora's upper hand twitched, an unconscious reflex. "You want to banish an entire species? Humanity's been an active member of the Galactic Council for barely 100 years. Active?" Zixlor hissed, his eyeless face turning toward her. "They have been nothing short of a cataclysm." With a slow, deliberate motion, one of his tentacles tapped a control panel, shifting the holographic display. The deep blue orb of Earth faded, replaced by incident reports, footage, and classified dossiers spanning nearly a century. One by one, the sins of humanity played out before them. Exhibit A. The Proxima Incident. A meeting between the Drell Empire and the United Earth Coalition was supposed to be a simple diplomatic exchange, a treaty negotiation regarding disputed hyperspace lanes. Instead, the human delegation hacked the Drell security network, reprogrammed their battle drones, and turned them into Vex Ora side disco balls. The footage played. Thousands of battle drones gyrating through the sky, flashing neon lights to the rhythm of what humans called electronic dance music. Zixlor exhaled through his breathing gills. Their ambassador smiled while launching an outright cyber attack on a sovereign military force. And then they donated the Drell's entire war fund to orphanages across 3 sectors, Vex Ora muttered. Exhibit B. The Morax Diplomatic Summit. The Morax, a proud warrior race capable of shape-shifting, had attempted to intimidate the human delegation by taking the form of a massive, fire-breathing dragon, a creature from Earth's ancient myths. What did the humans do? They pulled out marshmallows and asked if anyone wanted to make s'mores? Result? The Morax, humiliated beyond words, withdrew from the Galactic Council entirely. Vex Ora actually had to suppress a chuckle at that one. Exhibit C. The Pecan Armada. The Pecan Empire, a militaristic species, had once attempted to force humanity into submission. They threatened to bombard Earth. The humans responded by hacking into the Pecan's planetary communications and broadcasting a single piece of ancient Earth music across every frequency. For 3 days straight. Vex Ora could still remember the dumbfounded rage on the Pecan warlord's face as the council replayed the footage. Never gonna give you up. Never gonna let you down. Half the Pecan command staff resigned in sheer embarrassment. Zixlor's tentacles curled. They are unpredictable, chaotic, and worst of all, highly influential. Vex Ora exhaled slowly, turning her gaze toward the deep blue world displayed before them. "They're just creative," she said at last. "They are dangerous," Zixlor snapped. Their planet has experienced more technological advancement in a single century than most species achieve in a millennium. Their culture glorifies rebellion, Their greatest historical figures are not peacemakers but troublemakers. Their scientific progress stems from challenging authority, not cooperating with it. Vexora frowned. This was true. Humanity's heroes were revolutionaries. Their legends were filled with rebels, defiers, and those who had risen against impossible odds. It was not in their nature to kneel. And so, she asked, what's the plan? Seal off their entire solar system. The boundary barrier will contain them, Zixlor declared, until they either destroy themselves or mature enough to rejoin galactic society. Vexora's secondary heart thumped. And the vote already passed, Zixlor said. 16,422 in favor. Only 3 against. Let me guess? Vexora muttered. The Tyrell voted against it? Zixlor sneered. Of course, the Tyrell find humans charming. They'd adopt a supernova if they could. He gestured, his tendrils coiling. Your fleet will deploy the barrier tomorrow. The humans will be informed of their quarantine. Vexora inhaled slowly. She had commanded fleets against spacefaring warlords, faced down rogue AI uprisings, and survived black hole anomalies. But delivering this news to humanity? That frightened her. 12 hours later, New Geneva, Earth. The Grand Hall of the United Earth Council was filled with silence. On one side of the room, Vexora Toll stood in full ceremonial armor, her diplomatic crest gleaming. On the other, the leaders of Earth sat in stunned disbelief. Then Representative Jackson Blackwell leaned back, chuckling softly. Let me get this straight, he said, voice laced with amusement. The Galactic Council is putting humanity in timeout? Vexora hesitated. The official term is protective isolation. Representative Amara Okafor smirked. You're giving us a cosmic restraining order. Vexora's skin flushed blue. The barrier will remain in place until humanity demonstrates sufficient maturity. Maturity? Scoffed Representative Lena Jiang. We have eliminated poverty. We've cured diseases. We have colonies on Mars. Meanwhile, your council still hasn't agreed on standardized docking procedures after 8,000 years. Vexora had no response. She turned to leave. But then, Representative Karam Nasser spoke softly. If we try to break through? Vexora turned. The barrier is powered by 13 quasars. It cannot be breached with your current technology. Silence. Then Blackwell laughed. Oh, honey, he grinned. You really shouldn't have told us that. Vexora felt a chill. She turned to her lieutenant. Prepare the fleet. But deep down, she knew. This wasn't the end of humanity. It was only the beginning. The silent 50 years, and the day everything changed. Year 1, the Council celebrates. The banishment of humanity became the pride and joy of the Galactic Council. For the first time in centuries, High Counselor Zixlor found himself greeted with praise, rather than complaints, whenever he walked through the towering halls of the Grand Spire on Zalvek Prime. The most troublesome, reckless, unpredictable species in history had been isolated, their rapid expansion contained behind an impenetrable barrier of raw cosmic energy. The boundary barrier was perfect, powered by 13 harnessed quasars, reinforced by dimensional folding, technology so advanced that only 3 civilizations in the entire galaxy even understood how it worked. There is nothing to worry about, Zixlor said at the Great Galactic Summit, standing before representatives from 16,000 species. The humans will adapt. They will mature. And in time, perhaps they will rejoin us. A thunderous ovation filled the chamber. To the preservation of order, declared Councillor Gress of the Von hierarchy, raising a goblet of solar nectar. "To peace at last," cheered Ambassador Dex of the Morax, who still refused to acknowledge the s'mores incident. To many, this was a golden age. The human threat had been neutralized. The galaxy could finally move forward without fear. Or so they believed. Year 5. The silence feels off. Something was strange. The humans, for all their unpredictability, defiance, and insatiable curiosity, were now silent. Not just militarily, not just politically, completely. They had every right to scream in outrage, to fight back, to send out pleas for diplomatic review, to attempt legal challenges, protests, even black market trade deals. Instead, nothing. They did not beg, they did not fight, they did not call out. They simply disappeared behind the barrier. At first, the Council celebrated this compliance, but by year 10, unease began to spread. "They're planning something," muttered Vex Oratul, now Supreme Fleet Commander, staring at the reports. "Or perhaps," countered High Counselor Zixlor, "they have finally learned their place." But even Zixlor felt it. Something wasn't right. Year 25, the Ghost System. By now, strange rumors had begun to circulate. Council ships stationed near the boundary reported odd fluctuations in the barrier's energy signature. It was subtle, almost invisible to normal scans, but those with advanced sensors saw it. Bursts of distorted space-time ripples, like a heartbeat pulsing from within the Sol system. Yet every spy drone sent into the barrier vanished. The Tyrell, the only species to vote against the exile, had secretly sent unmanned probes. None returned. Something was happening inside the solar system, and nobody knew what. Year 50. The day everything changed. Pelok, chief monitor of the Sol containment zone, had the most boring job in the galaxy. For 20 years, he had sat in the same chair, in the same monitoring station, staring at the same unchanged energy readings. The barrier never fluctuated. Nothing ever changed. Today, he expected another day of absolute boredom. He was wrong. "Sir," cried his assistant, Trazka, a bright-eyed brill with vibrant purple fur. The barrier, "It's..." An alarm exploded across the station. Pelok sat upright so fast he nearly dislocated his spine. What's happening?" "The barrier, it's destabilizing," Trazka shouted, her 6 limbs flying across the control panels. "That's impossible," Pelok snarled, yanking the main energy readout onto the holographic display. It was true. Sections of the boundary barrier were collapsing, one after the other, like falling dominoes. The impenetrable, unbreachable, Council-approved superstructure was failing. Pelok felt his twin hearts hammering. "This isn't possible," he whispered. "The barrier is powered by 13 quasars. It cannot be broken." A moment of dead silence. Then, boom. The entire station trembled as something massive dropped out of hyperspace, directly in front of them. Pelok's breath caught. It was a ship, but not any ship. This thing was unlike anything ever seen in galactic history. Predatory, sleek, alive. Dark obsidian plating pulsed with eerie blue circuitry that almost looked organic. Lines of light flowed like veins under its armor, shifting in strange, mesmerizing patterns. And it was big. No, bigger than big. It dwarfed their station the way a mountain dwarfs an insect. Pelok's assistant could only whisper in awe, "What is that?" The answer came a moment later. Their communication system activated, on its own. A holographic figure appeared in the center of their command deck. A human woman, dark skin, silver hair, piercing eyes. She stood in full military dress, but it was no uniform Pelok recognized. She smiled, a slow, confident, calculated smile. "Greetings from the United Earth Alliance," she said smoothly. "I am Admiral Imani Okoro of the UEA Pathfinder. It appears your barrier has suffered a Slight malfunction. Hope we didn't startle you. Pelak's jaw fell open. Trazka's voice trembled. How did you breach the barrier? The human woman chuckled. Oh, that old thing? Admiral Okoro gestured dismissively. We could have broken through decades ago. Pelak froze. What? We decided to use the time for research and development instead, Okoro said, folding her arms. Thanks for the uninterrupted time to advance our technology. Very productive. Pelak's blood ran cold. Humanity hadn't been sitting idly behind the wall. They had been preparing. And now, they had returned. Galactic Central, the Grand Council Chambers, emergency session. The chamber was in pandemonium. Thousands of council members, representing 16,000 species, filled the vast dome of the Grand Council spire. For the first time in millennia, fear ruled the assembly. News had spread like wildfire across the galactic network. The humans had escaped. The unbreakable barrier had failed. And now, human warships were appearing across council space. Out of nowhere, hundreds of them. They materialized in orbit around key trade hubs, in diplomatic sectors, and even near military outposts. But they didn't fire. They simply sat there, watching, waiting. A message had been broadcast across every major planetary system. Humanity has returned. A new era begins. The ancient and once powerful High Counselor Zix Lor had to be physically supported as he shuffled to the central podium. This is an outrage, he spat, his tentacles trembling with rage and terror. His once great voice shook with age and fear. We exiled them, he shrieked. The barrier was powered by 13 quasars. It was designed to last 1,000,000 years. Grand Admiral Vex Ora Tull, now aged but still imposing, sighed from her seat at the military delegation table. She had warned them. They hadn't listened. Now humanity was back, and they weren't asking for permission. Above Zalvek Prime, Galactic Council's capital world, a shadow fell over the capital planet. One of the human ships had arrived, not a small diplomatic vessel, not a scout ship, a flagship, the UEA Pathfinder. It was a behemoth, 10 times larger than any council battleship. The surface of the vessel shifted, revealing pulsing blue lines, technology that shouldn't exist. And then, a single human shuttle detached. It descended toward the Grand Council chambers, and the galaxy held its breath. Inside the Grand Council chambers, the massive doors slammed open. The room fell silent. A single figure walked in, human, tall, dark skin, silver hair, eyes sharp enough to cut through steel. She strode forward in a uniform that no one recognized, a dark navy coat lined with subtle metallic fibers pulsing with faint blue energy. A uniform of the United Earth Alliance. Behind her, 2 alien figures walked in step, not human, not from the Council, but unknown species. And they walked side by side. The entire chamber was frozen in shock. The human smiled. It was not a warm smile, it was a calculated one. Greetings, esteemed members of the Galactic Council, she said, her voice smooth, powerful, confident. It has been 50 years. We have much to discuss. The silence in the chamber was absolute. Zix Lauer shuddered, because for the first time in his life, he saw something in human eyes he had never seen before. Not defiance, not rage, not rebellion. No, he saw dominance. The humans weren't here to ask for a seat at the table. They had already built their own. And now, they had come to see if the rest of the galaxy deserved to join them. The final choice, submit or compete. Galactic Council Chambers, Zalvek Prime. The chamber was deathly silent. All eyes, all thousands of them, belonging to creatures of every shape and size, were locked on the human woman who stood at the center of the room. She did not bow. She did not look nervous. She simply waited with the patience of a species that had already won. High Counselor Zix Lauer felt a tremor in his limbs as he tried to summon his usual authority. This is an outrage," he snarled, forcing his voice to project across the vast chamber. "You have violated the terms of your quarantine. You have." The human woman turned her head slightly. Her eyes met his. And for the first time in centuries, Zix Lauer stopped speaking mid-sentence. Because what he saw in those human eyes was not fear, not anger, not even hostility. No, it was pity. Pity, as if Zix Lauer was a child throwing a tantrum over a game he had already lost. "We violated nothing," she said finally, her voice calm, even. "We never agreed to be imprisoned. You decided that for us. We simply ignored you." The council chamber exploded into chaos. 50 years of silence, a galactic miscalculation. A dozen species shouted at once, their voices overlapping. "You circumvented our technology. You violated a council decree. You manipulated us. How long have you been preparing for this?" The human, Admiral Amani Okoro, let them scream. She waited, let them burn out their fear. Then she raised a single hand. Silence fell again. And that's when she revealed the truth. "You thought you exiled us. You were wrong. You assumed we would suffer in our isolation," Admiral Okoro began, stepping forward. Her voice was measured, her steps precise. "You thought that cutting us off from your technology, your trade networks, your knowledge would cripple us." She glanced around the chamber. "But instead, you gave us something precious. You gave us 50 uninterrupted years to focus entirely on ourselves." A wave of discomfort spread through the council. Some species shifted uncomfortably. Others remained eerily still. "You gave us time," Okoro continued, pacing now. "Time to innovate, time to redefine what it means to be human, time to prepare." Zix Lauer gripped the edge of the podium, his gills flaring. "Prepare for what?" The Admiral stopped and smiled. "For this moment." And then she raised her hand, and the chamber changed. A demonstration of power. The air itself rippled. A massive holographic display erupted from thin air, not like the Council's outdated projector-based systems, but true, hard-light holograms, solid enough to be touched. A breathtaking three-dimensional map of the galaxy filled the chamber. At first, it looked normal. But then the Council members realized something. There were new pathways running through the void. New connections between systems where none should exist. New hyperspace lanes that didn't follow known physics. What is this?" one of the Tyrell ambassadors whispered. Admiral Okoro gestured, and the map zoomed in on a sector deep in human space. A shipyard. But not just any shipyard. A colossal structure, larger than entire planets, floating in deeps, and inside, warships. Hundreds. No, thousands. Sleek. Black. More advanced than anything the Council had ever seen. "These are our fleets," Admiral Okoro said. Zix Lauer felt his twin heart stutter. "This is impossible," he whispered. "You should not be capable of this," one of the Morax delegates shouted. "You gave us no choice," Okoro said simply. "You left us with nothing but ourselves, so we had to build, we had to create, we had to evolve." She turned, gazing across the chamber. "For 50 years we have advanced without your interference, without your laws, without your limitations." She paused, "And now we have returned, not as supplicants, not as rebels, but as equals." The Council faces extinction, or reinvention. A chill settled over the chamber. The Council had always seen itself as the pinnacle of civilization. They had always assumed their authority was unchallenged. But now, staring at the undeniable proof of humanity's advancements, they knew the truth. They had made a catastrophic miscalculation. The humans had not fallen behind. They had outpaced everyone. By centuries, a slow, creeping realization dawned on every species in the room. This wasn't just about humanity. This was about survival. The galaxy now had two choices: resist and risk being left behind, adapt and evolve with humanity. The final decision. High Counselor Zix Lauer trembled. His tentacles felt weak. He had spent centuries fighting for order, for stability, for control. But now, as he gazed into human eyes, he saw the future. And it was not his to shape anymore. It belonged to them. His mandibles clicked. His old tired voice barely whispered, "What do you want?" Admiral Okoro gave a small knowing smile. "The galaxy is at a crossroads," she said softly. "We can uplift one another, or we can collapse in fear." She folded her arms. "Humanity chooses progress." Her gaze swept across the chamber. "The only question is..." She leaned forward. "Will you keep up? A new era begins." The vote came swiftly. 16,422 council members in favor. Only 3 against. A perfect inversion of the vote that had banished humanity 50 years ago. As the chamber erupted in discussions, Admiral Okoro turned and walked away. Beside her, Grand Admiral Vex Oratul smirked. "You really planned this entire thing, didn't you?" she murmured. Okoro's eyes gleamed. "Of course," she said. "This is what we do. We take the impossible and we make it ours."